Hi, it's Dwyer, GamblersAdvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Today is September the 2nd, 2012. Briefly, Gennady Golovkin delivered. The over in the Felix Sturm Daniel Gill fight delivered. And while Sergio Zurich did not win his fight against Jonathan Gonzalez, that fight was ruled a draw. And so, in some casinos, you should have been able to even get your money back on the last one. Okay, let's talk about Ward versus Dawson. I have an updated take on that fight that might surprise some people. You know, the line is out of whack. This fight really should be a pick'em. It really should be an even money fight across the board. If anyone is to be favored, perhaps you'd give a slight edge to the hometown fighter, Andre Ward. But that's not what the casinos have done. For reasons I don't know about. Maybe it's public image. Maybe it's the fact that the Jean Pascal, Chad Dawson fight was heavily watched and may have impacted people's opinions. But for some reason, Las Vegas has placed Chad Dawson at a greater than 2-to-1 disadvantage. Right? You actually get, right now as I make this video, a plus 225 on Chad Dawson. Right? Let me go one step further. I believe this fight goes several rounds, right? The over 9.5 pays off at minus 650. But more importantly, Chad Dawson, by decision, believe it or not, goes off at plus 400. This is that rare fight where what I think is going to happen isn't how I'm going to bet the fight. Because at the end of the day, I'm looking for value. If you're going to give me a plus 400 on Chad Dawson by decision, I need a taste. So right now, the way I'm playing the fight, if the outcome I believe happens, is that Andre Ward squeaks out a narrow victory. But that's not how I'm betting it. Because the odds aren't that great. Ward is something like a minus 300 and higher, right? Even Ward by decision is a minus 200. So, because I believe you always need to look for value, and you always should try to swing for the fences wherever you have outsized odds on an excellent fighter, and that's what Chad Dawson is. Understand, before this fight was announced, I had Andre Ward on my Dwyer Top 10 Boxing.blogspot.com pound for pound list as the third best fighter in the sport pound for pound, behind only Floyd Mayweather and Sergio Martinez. And I had Chad Dawson fourth. Right? If you're going to tell me that I can take the guy fourth on my list at these odds, I'm going to have to come up with a hedge play. And the way I'm playing this is to take the over 9.5. I believe that's the best bet on the board. I don't see either guy knocking out the other early in this fight. In fact, if you look at their records, you're going to see that most of their recent fights have gone the distance. Right? I like the over 9.5 at minus 650. Straddled against Chad Dawson to win the fight by decision at plus 400. The way I have it broken out is the money I'd win on the over, I'm just putting that all on Chad Dawson to win by decision at plus 400. Right? My logic is simply, if the fight goes over and Chad Dawson wins by decision, then I win both sides of the bet. Right? If the fight goes over and Andre Ward wins, then I break even. But understand the risk. If either guy gets a stoppage before the midway point of the 10th round, the way I've played this, I lose it all. Okay, so that's my recommendation to gamblers. In fact, I'm just going to say that's what I'm doing, simply because there is a distinct possibility, and I believe it's greater than 1 in 4. There is a distinct possibility that this fight goes the distance and that Chad Dawson wins a decision. Right? That's a distinct possibility. Right? I feel this fight is evenly matched. I don't understand what Vegas is doing. Let me also say, too, in reference to the fight, I know Andre Ward is better presented. He's more polished. He looks more corporate. Right? But understand that Chad Dawson, with Andre Ward, is one of the toughest fighters mentally that I know of. Right? If Chad Dawson could be faulted for something in a fight, it's the fact that he believes in himself so much that he didn't panic as Jean Pascal stole the early rounds in his fight against Pascal. And even that fight, I would argue that Pascal is dead on his feet when that fight gets stopped due to a cut that Dawson suffered. Right? It's a shame that that fight didn't make it into the 12th round where anything could have happened. Right? But Dawson, might look lackadaisical. He isn't. He's extremely driven. He's extremely cerebral. You don't get the skill set that Chad Dawson has by being lackadaisical. It's not accidental that Chad Dawson can fight outside and can fight inside. The question in this fight, as I've said before, and I have a pre-fight video up, is whether or not Andre Ward can get inside, right, and can get Chad Dawson pinned up against the ropes. Understand where this fight is fought is as important as what's happening in the fight. Because if they're in the middle of the ring, Chad Dawson, in my opinion, would have the advantage. I don't believe Andre Ward can beat Chad Dawson in the middle of the ring. He's somehow going to have to find a way to pin Dawson up on the ropes, and understand that even with his back touching the ropes, as he showed when he fought Antonio Tarver, Chad Dawson knows how to comport himself. So given these skewed odds today, September 2nd, the way I'm playing it, while I think Andre Ward wins the fight, the way I'm playing it, because I'm looking for value, is I like the over 9.5 rounds. That's the base bet. And I'm hedging it with Chad Dawson by decision. I won't be crying if Dawson wins a decision. I'll be collecting both halves of the bet. And if Ward wins a decision, I'll be okay, because the way I've structured the play, once it goes over, I at least break even, right? That's how I'm playing that. Let's talk about other big news in boxing. Miguel Cotto has announced that he's going to fight Austin Trout. Now, I know the public is hot on Cotto. Cotto just gave Floyd Mayweather a pretty good test, right? Let me just say, at the end of the day, it's not reputations that make fights, it's styles that make fights. I think this is a terrible fight for Miguel Cotto. I like Austin Trout in the fight. That's the way I'm going to bet the fight, straddled against Cotto by knockout. I do not think Miguel Cotto can win a decision. I don't care if the fight is in Madison Square Garden or is in Miguel Cotto's living room. I expect him to be soundly outboxed by Austin Trout. Here's why. Cotto is really a lefty fighting orthodox. So the CompuBox numbers really are wrong, because Cotto's jab is with his dominant hand. It's a power punch. It's very important to his game. I mean, very important to his game. I'll put it to you this way. Against Manny Pacquiao, Miguel Cotto, and this is a fight Cotto lost. It did not go the distance. But understand that Miguel Cotto threw 297 jabs in a little bit more than 11 rounds in that fight. 297. To put that in perspective, his so-called power punches, and as I said before, with an inverted fighter, the power punch really isn't a power punch, right? Because his dominant hand's his lead hand. But understand, Cotto's power punches against Pacquiao, he only threw 3 more power punches than jabs against Manny Pacquiao, right? Well, let me just say this. It all comes down to footwork in this one. Austin Trout has phenomenal footwork, right? Phenomenal footwork. How good? And by footwork, I'm talking about not just foot speed, but I'm talking about playing the angles, knowing where to be so you don't get hit. How good's his footwork? When he fought Delvin Rodriguez, his last fight, understand that fight went the distance. It went 12 rounds. Did you know that there is not, according to CompuBox, a single round in that 12-round fight where Delvin Rodriguez was able to land 2 jabs? Right? He tried. I mean, when you look at the CompuBox numbers, he throws 17 jabs in round 6, lands none of them. He throws 16 jabs in round 8, lands none of them. In fact, this is how dominant Trout's footwork is. From round 6 to round 8, Rodriguez throws 17 jabs in round 6, 10 jabs in round 7, 16 jabs in round 8, and lands none of them. It's very hard to land a jab on Austin Trout. Very hard. And let me just say this. Cotto, because he's inverted, doesn't move around the ring as well as a fighter who's not inverted, right? Because as I've said before, just like you have a dominant hand, you have a dominant foot, right? Soccer players know this, right? So Trout's going to be moving around the ring. Cotto's going to be having a very hard time keeping up. Very hard time, right? So I think Cotto is going to find that he can't get going, right? His lead jab, his primary weapon, it's really a power punch. I believe he's going to have a very hard time landing it on Austin Trout, right? Very hard time. Let me also point out, too, that against a fast southpaw, Manny Pacquiao, very fast, blindingly fast, right? And the reason I'm mentioning Pacquiao is he's a southpaw just like Trout. Miguel Cotto was able to land 27% of his jabs. 27. Right? Let me point out, too, that against Floyd Mayweather, perhaps the sport's best defensive fighter, Cotto was able to land 17% of his jabs. Right? Well, Delvin Rodriguez, over 12 rounds against Austin Trout, threw 160 jabs. He landed 6 of them. 4%. Right? If Cotto is unable to get his jab going, he's going to find himself in with really the next generation. A fighter who, in my opinion, is destined to be on the pound-for-pound list. And Trout, like Orlando Salido, seems to find a way to throw hooks while being off at the side and to move around the ring. I'm guessing Trout, who not a lot of people know, is going to be an underdog in this fight. He's the guy who I think wins it. But because Cotto does have a lethal left hand, especially when he gets going and he's able to land that left hook to the body. I'm going to hedge my play of Trout to win, and you should get better than even money odds on that play, particularly since this fight's in Madison Square Garden. I'm going to hedge Trout to win with Miguel Cotto by KO. But as I said before, if Cotto's having a hard time even landing on Trout, it's doubtful he even gets close to a KO. Let me also say this. Why is Cotto taking this fight? And I think the answer is obvious. It's because he's Miguel Cotto, right? Cotto's a warrior. I'm sure if Cotto had his way, he would be fighting either Mayweather or Pacquiao, simply because Cotto is the kind of guy who wants to avenge every loss. Now, it's my understanding that he was willing to fight Pacquiao at 154. Keep in mind, Pacquiao briefly held the title at 154. Apparently, Manny Pacquiao's people did not want to fight Miguel Cotto over 150. Cotto, at this stage in his life, felt that he didn't need the aggravation. He's not going to drain himself to fight at an artificially low weight. I'm sure in his mind, that's the only reason why he lost the first Pacquiao fight. Floyd Mayweather, of course, just got out of jail. He hasn't announced his comeback date in the ring. I'm sure Miguel Cotto would leap at the opportunity to fight Floyd Mayweather. So the next best option, given that Canelo is fighting Josecito Lopez, so Canelo is unavailable, right? I'm sure the next best option for Cotto was to fight unbeaten Austin Trout. Here's the problem. Somebody should have told Cotto that Trout's style is a nightmare for him. I'm expecting Trout to put himself on the map. I'm expecting Trout to beat Cotto, but I am going to hedge it with Cotto by KO. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com and DwyerBoxingNews.com. Thanks for watching.